Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the SpectroVision automated inline color measurements for packaging printers. We're so happy everyone could join us. This is the third webinar in our Lunch and Learn series, and we have a few more to come, so please make sure to join us for those as well. Today we have Doug Sherwood, the Channel Director at Techkon USA, and Steve Rankin, the Director of Product Development at Techkon USA, here with us to present on this topic. As always, please use the questions pane during the webinar to type in any questions or comments you have so that we can address them after the presentation. And without further ado, I'll hand it right over to Doug.
Hey, well, thank you, Allison. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're located. This is the third installment of our Techkon Lunch and Learn webinar series. And I see that we have a very strong list of attendees here today. Thank you for joining us. We see that we have actually a lot that have been with us throughout this entire series. So I'm very glad that you have the opportunity to soak up some Techkon knowledge. This is a great opportunity for us to address topics and also dig a little bit deeper into subject matter than we usually do. So a lot of these webinars, we're taking a little bit more time than usual, getting a little more detailed, and we found that some wonderful conversation and some wonderful questions have come out of it as a result. So today, as Allison mentioned, we are going to be covering the SpectroVision, which is Techkon's automated solution for inline color measurement for the packaging world, right? So most of you are familiar with me. I'm Doug Sherwood, and I'm also here with Steve Rankin. He's our Director of Product Management. And really, there's no better person to take us through the SpectroVision and show us the features and the tools that come with the SpectroVision than Steve. So I'm thrilled that we can have him aboard here today. So why are we here, and what will we be tackling for the next 45 minutes? First, I'll just start with a 2-minute overview of Techkon for those of you who may not be familiar with Techkon USA and really our objective. And we'll dive right into the SpectroVision in regards to, hey, what's the purpose of this inline tool? What are the components and features that make this thing work? And we're going to dive right into a demo so you actually see it on press. We have the rewinder set up here so you can see it in motion and see it running in real time. And then what's the outcome of all this? What does it mean to you as a packaging printer? What will it do for you? What's the return on investment? And what will it mean for your customers? And then last but not least, we will be taking time to answer your questions. So I expect the talking portion of this call to run about 45 minutes, demo included, at which point we'll actually conclude and open up the floor to your chats, and from there we'll address your questions. So please, yes, use the chat window in your webinar interface here. As you think of the questions, go ahead, type them in, and we'll be sure to get to as many as we can toward the end of the session here today. So what's our objective as a company? So Techkon USA was actually founded 13 years ago following Techkon Germany with its 32-year track record. And Germany really focused on constructing accurate instrumentation for color measurement. And now what we do with the advent of our software, the Chroma suite, Chroma QA and Chroma LT, is we couple that together with the instrumentation for an integrated solution. All right, so there are a lot of things we can achieve here for the printing community in regards to color, the least of which is to get you the absolute best user experience and really just to make color easy for you. All right. we have a very long list of reputable customers that utilize Techkon every day. And they're utilizing Techkon because in doing so, they require less time on press. They're using less ink, okay, less materials in doing so, and they have repeatable results. So I always ask myself, who is our audience? And in this scenario, our audience is really everyone along that supply chain. So today, we're going to be speaking to advantages for the operator. We're going to be speaking to advantages of the QC manager as we review the SpectroVision. And at the end of the day, let's not forget the facility owner and facility management, because we're really helping them in regards to not only ease of use, but reporting. And who ultimately wins? It's actually the customer, okay, because they're getting high quality materials at the end of the day. So let's dive right into the SpectroVision. And the SpectroVision was actually, it came about to address a few challenges, okay? And really there are three very common challenges that we find reoccur time and time again. The first of which is color, okay? So the SpectroVision is our inline solution designed for narrow to medium web applications, and it sits above the web and traverses. The spectro head that you see here actually traverses from the operator side to the gear side, and it will pick up items within that web. The first of being color. So you all recognize Techkon and Techkon USA for our pursuit in color and achieving accurate color and reporting on that. And this is no different. So you can get in there, measure your color bars, your color patches, as well as in image locations. If you can find a patch in image for anything that's color critical or color sensitive work, you can get right in there and measure that while that press is running. Okay, so the SpectroVision is designed so as you're doing the QC for your color, you're not slowing down your production. All right. Second is web viewing. So there is a camera on board. You can see the white camera housing here together with an LED that's a strobe, and it allows you to examine things like registration marks and identify print defects, because it will create a still image and also magnify that image so that the operator can see that right in their control panel there. So they know if something's awry, they know if those registration marks are accurate, okay? And last but not least, barcode grading. So there are thousands of different types of barcodes, and what the SpectroVision is doing is it's assigning an ISO or an ANSI style barcode grade to that. So at the end of the day, you know, what are we doing? We're reducing your make ready times, you're producing less waste and a higher quality product. Okay, so where is this applicable? Really any narrow to medium web press. We've also now just gotten into some very wide applications as well. Okay. In today's world now, it doesn't really matter how fast that press is running, and we just have to make an adjustment as to the patch size, which Steve will speak to in a few minutes here. Okay, so if you're looking for accurate color and doing color sensitive work on your web press, the SpectroVision might be a suitable solution for you. So what's happening here is the Spectro is hovering above that web, getting thousands of measurements, and it's pushing it to the Chroma QA software, which runs in tandem with that Spectro and runs in tandem with the camera. So it's providing on-fly reports for color and subsequently making recommendations for that operator. Okay, so he or she can go in and increase density or decrease density and adjust that web and adjust the tension, okay, and use this not only to develop the reports, but in real time as a preventative measure before they stray out of tolerance. Okay, and we'll show you some examples here of when it may be approaching tolerance, okay, and it gives the operator the opportunity to jump in and make the adjustment while that press is still running, so they don't need to start and stop that press. All right, so if we have a color bar either on the gear side or on the operator side, this Spectro will hit the color bar, and we then set up any sort of metric, so any parameters we want, and set up a very simple pass-fail system. Many people use the G7 standards, for example. Many use a delta E of maybe 2 or 3, and it's a simple pass-fail in real time of what's going on with that color bar. Okay, so in this example, we can see that our magenta tint's a little bit off. Okay, so this might need a little bit of work. Next, we can zoom in on this registration mark wherever it is on the web and put that web viewing component to work. We'll magnify it and also take a still shot. This web can be running at 1,000 feet per minute, and the operator will see a nice clear still of this registration mark. We can do the exact same thing for a sensitive logo or for a sensitive graphic. So for example, we can take these banana chips and we may have a sensitive graphic in here that we want to zoom in on, okay, to ensure the quality of this work. And the operator has the ability to do that, and this camera will actually hone in on the stem on this pepper of the graphic, and it allows them to QC this job on the fly. All right. And third, we mentioned barcode scoring. So for example, we have a barcode, all right, and we can now look at any number of metrics and assign a score based on things like reflectance or edge contrast or the length and the width of this barcode, and we'll assign it an ISO or an ANSI style grade, so you can see this barcode was a success, this barcode received an A. Okay, so that's really a brief overview of the color feature and the color control features within the SpectroVision, in addition to the web viewing and in addition to the barcode scoring. So the next important piece here are the components, which Steve is actually going to speak to in regards to what are the components of the SpectroVision, what does it come with, and what can you expect?
Wow, Doug, I got to say, you really set me up. You did a fantastic job of introducing SpectroVision, I think, to everybody, and you really made my job a lot easier here today. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the components of the system. We're going to look at it live in just a few minutes on the webcam. However, this is probably the best picture of the system that you're going to get to see today of what the system looks like. And we've just kind of called out, what the components are. There's, of course, a true spectrophotometer, and something to keep in mind. What sets us apart from some other systems, this is not camera-based color measurement. It's a true scanning spectrophotometer. The spectrophotometer is paired with a 2D camera that has some LED strobes. And as Doug pointed out, right, we use the camera for really to help, first of all, it helps move the spectrum. It helps to guide the spectrophotometer to measure in the right location. And then we also use it to do the barcode scoring, as well as the registration or live web viewing. That whole thing is mounted onto a transverse arm. That arm can be up to 80 inches in width, so we can accommodate a wide variety of presses. And then there's also a light tower, which comes with the system, and that can be mounted somewhere along the press. So the operator, if they're not right in front of the screen, looking at the color data or looking at results, they can actually see status quickly through that light tower. And then there is an ISO compliant white backer, which is actually not pictured here on screen, but that takes care of the white backing. So the other components of the system is there's a computer and 2 touchscreen monitors. So this is how the press operator interfaces with the system. Everything is a touchscreen interface, but that's what they will get all their feedback on is through these 2 touchscreens. And again, once we get the demo going here in a second, I'm going to share my 2 touchscreens so you can see what the software interface looks like. And then the last component is just the 2 seats of Chroma QA. I think Doug mentioned we've paired the SpectroVision along with our Chroma QA. That's our cloud-based color quality platform, and that's where all the measurements get stored and reports get created from the Chroma QA. When we talk about SpectroVision and its capabilities, here's kind of an example. So again, something that sets us apart. We actually measure an entire color bar in a single printed impression. And this happens at press speeds up to 1,000 feet a minute. So this is a really unique feature of the product, and it makes the product extremely useful, even when you're using the system during make ready, because during make ready, it's the press operator's job to get up to color as fast as possible. And here we're actually able to return an entire color bar's worth of data, right? Solids, tints, overprints, G7, whatever is in that color bar. We can provide all that data back really, really fast to the operator. So fast that they can use the system in make ready to get up to color faster, make their adjustments on press, and get into production. So, not only is it useful to, once you're in production, to be able to monitor production and make sure that, throughout the run, you're still achieving your color goals. But again, in make ready, this is a pretty key feature, which really helps the ROI of the product. Hold on. And one more thing I want to point out, besides color bars, we can actually measure anywhere inside the image as well. So if you don't have color bars, right, if you don't have the width to have color bars on either side of the sheet, that's okay. Sometimes we have customers that would prefer to actually measure in the work, right? To actually measure, the work that will be delivered to the customer, and you can set those locations. It's very easy to do, and the system will measure right from inside the work. So that was kind of a little bit about the color, and I know Doug touched on the web viewing. So, this is kind of a screenshot of what the web viewing looks like. The press operator can set the locations for where they want to keep an eye on. Typically, that's registration marks and maybe some other, fine type and things like that. They can set the magnification level for each mark as well. And then they have automatic and manual modes. And so, when the system is not measuring color, because it doesn't measure color all the time, it's basically a web viewer. And so we see a lot of folks replacing their older web viewers on press, putting in one of our systems, and then they have, these 3 different features that they can use in SpectroVision, with web viewing being one of the more important ones. Let's go. And then barcode grading, I think Doug covered this again very well. There's a huge variety of barcode types that we can score, and we are doing the ISO or ANSI style grading. And again, the system, automatically locates them. The press operator doesn't have to do anything. but it will return those scores. And what's great about this, and we've heard about this from lots of customers, what they really love is checking these barcodes to see if they're readable before the roll comes off press. Because a lot of press operators today, you know, they have a hand scanner, and the only time they can check the barcodes is when the roll comes off the press. And at that point, if it fails, it's too late, right? And that roll, a lot of times those rolls have to be scrapped. So this lets you check inline before it's too late. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to walk over here to the rewinder where we have a system set up. And we do not have it on a press today in our lab, but we do have it on a rewinder. And I've got a roll set up on here. So let me first turn on my webcam. And that is our system mounted onto our rewinder. And we have a job there. It's got 4 lanes of labels that run across it. And next, I am going to share my screen. Now, when I do, I'm sharing 2 screens, so your view might get a little tight. Let's see here.
And as Steve's doing that, I might add, you do have the ability to move this. We call it the hamburger, up or down, depending on the view, so that you can enlarge or shrink either the webcam or Steve's actual dual screens here.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Doug. I was going to point that out, that you guys can kind of focus in on what you want to see. And I do have, actually, after the demo, there's a couple slides, too, that will show some of the software a little more up close. So you'll get a little better look at it once the demo is done itself. So I've got a job set up here. It has already a couple of web viewing locations. I've got two sets of registration marks, one on the gear side, one on the operator side. I've got a couple barcodes in this job, and this job has one color bar in it. It's over on the gear side, and so that is the job we're going to run. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the rewinder. I've only got a few minutes worth of material that we can run. I'm going to run it at about 300 feet a minute here. And first thing I'm going to do is kind of look at the web viewing and let you see what that looks like. And then we'll do the barcodes, and then we'll see it measure color. And I'm going to put it then into the production mode. And so the system lets the press operator work in either like a make-ready mode, which is kind of more of a manual mode, or once they get up to color and they're in register, they can switch over to a production mode. And production mode, what's different here is make-ready mode measures everything as fast as possible, and it returns the data to the press operator as fast as possible. The production mode is a little different because here you can set a cadence for when you want the system to go out and measure color, because we really don't need to be measuring color all the time. Instead, maybe we want to measure color every 1,000 feet or every 1,000 impressions or every 10 minutes or something like that. And so that's what production mode is. That's kind of when you're up to color and you're monitoring things. And when it's not measuring color, like I said, it's a web viewer. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. You'll see my web come up to speed. And I'm going to go into the make-ready mode, and I'm going to go into the web viewing. I'm actually going to set my location. So you can see my registration is out at the moment, and I can traverse to the other side. And I'm going to do my barcodes. So it's going to find what's called the anchor in the image, and then it's going to go off and find the barcode. And I'm going to actually hide the web viewing and show the barcode grades. So it found barcode 1. There's actually 2 barcodes in this job that it's going to measure. And there's barcode 2. And then if we want to take a closer look at the details of these 2 barcodes, if I want to look at the individual elements, there's about 8 attributes that get scored as part of that ANSI scoring. I can do so, or I can kind of collapse these things and just pay attention to the overall grade. So once I've got that done, I'm going to pause and I'm going to go into now the measure color. And again, I'm in make ready mode, so you'll get an idea about how fast this thing is measuring color. So we can see that it is scanning my color, and I am just about out of material. So I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna show we've got a list of scans that are here. Those are the color measurements that were taken. The way we break down the elements in the color bar is by the patch type. So these are all my solid colors. If I want to look at just the solid colors in the delta E, for example, this job has 6 colors in it. It's got KCMY and 2 spots. And I am checking the delta E on those 6 colors. When I look at density, in my case, for this particular job, I'm not checking the density to a target for the 2 spot colors. I really only care about the delta E on the 2 spots, but I am checking the density to some kind of standard, right, to my aim values for the KCMY. And there are chroma hue plots in here, so I could flip through and see if I had to tone the ink on press, right? We have press operators that may have to tone the ink on press. They use this, for example. There are different trend curves in here. So if you needed to trend the data over a long run, this is really useful. That would be trending the delta E, trending the density. And we can look at the TVIs for the job. So here they are plotted. You can even trend the TVIs over a job too if I want to trend the 50% patch, for example. And there's a scorecard system built into Chroma QA as well. So that's a handy thing for for printers to take many different press attributes and roll them up into a single pass-fail score. Okay, so again, I'm going to migrate over here back to the slides. Doug, you going to queue up those slides?
Yes, we have them right here, ready to go. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so just a couple last-minute slides here that will, again, kind of show the capability or show those screens, in a little more detail than when I shared it live. But this is just a very simple graph, right? This is delta density. So again, you've plugged in your aim values for your CMYKs, right? Aim densities, and now the press operator sees very easily how they're doing compared to those. The next slide here actually shows, this is a good one because it actually shows what the operator sees when the color bar is on both sides of the press. So if the color bar, or if the
the job has a color bar on the gear side and operator side, we can actually report densities, delta E's, TVIs, whatever it is, we can report them for both sides. And so this way, right, in this example, the press operator, this is delta density. They might see that on the gear side, things look pretty good, but on the operator side, maybe they need to make some adjustments. Here's what the delta E looks like, right? If you just had kind of like what we just did, a color bar on one side. And I also want to point out that at the top, right under where it says delta E, about 3/4 to the way up at the top, you'll see some other text up there, and this is our ink check feature. So ink check is pretty invaluable for press operators. It gives them specific density adjustments to get to the lowest delta E that's possible on press. And so this is kind of the first thing press operator will look at. They're in Make Ready. They take one measurement, and immediately they can look at the ink check and they can see, can I get to within my tolerance? Can I get there? Within my tolerance by just making density adjustments alone. And if they can, that's great. If not, maybe that means immediately they can stop the press. They might have to go back to the ink room, maybe have ink remixed, or they know they need to tone that ink on press. And just another, I think we looked at this one. This was kind of like a chroma hue graph. Again, if they did need to tone the ink on press, this kind of a graph and these kind of delta L, A, B numbers would be useful. And here's kind of a blown up view of what that trend looks like. Once the operator is out of Make Ready and into production, we have a lot of folks that just kind of focus on either the delta E or delta D. They throw up that trend, and that's what they watch as the rolls come off the press. And then here's kind of another look at the TVI curves. And this one I didn't really cover when we were looking at the software, but this is the dashboard, and the dashboard lets the user put up any 4 graphs that's capable in the software all on one screen. And so this is, again, one of the favorites that we see operators using. In this example here, you can see I just have the delta density in the top left for my process. I got the delta E's in the bottom left. So I can see that everybody is in good shape. They're all within that green zone, which is my tolerance. I have the TVIs up in the upper right. Again, just looking at the CMYKs here, and looks like they're in good shape. And then I've got that scorecard in the bottom right, that lets me know that everything is operating well. So, I mentioned that the system uses our Chroma QA, which is a cloud-based color quality system. So the software works the same whether you have a handheld or whether you have, my phone just dropped on the floor here, whether you have a handheld or whether you have the SpectroVision connected. And again, we have customers that have they have some SpectroVision on some presses, and on other presses they use the handheld. So it's the same piece of software, same database. All the measurement data gets stored and collected inside of our Chroma QA. And what's great about this is, when the job is done, it's easy to make customized either job reports, and those can be customer facing or for internal stakeholders. Or you can actually, there's a whole query module that comes with Chroma QA. And this is really one of the other powerful features of Chroma QA, and it's kind of more of a long-term benefit because, the power of the query doesn't happen on day 1 or day 2, but after you have 6 months worth of data that you've collected and you've put into this database, this is where the query gets very powerful, because now you can start to extract data out in kind of a meaningful way, and you can start to look for trends, across plants, across presses, across inks, across shifts, right? Shifts of operators. This is where you can really start to see, again, the power of learning from from big data here, and to put that back into continuous process improvement.
Well, thank you, Steve. So that always brings it to life and really helps us get at the value proposition of the SpectroVision, to see it in action, see the component, see the benefit. And I think the real question is, okay, what is the outcome, right? What does it do for us as operators? What does it do for us as QC managers or as plant owners or as customers? And really, what is the key takeaway here? So the key takeaway in my mind really is real-time measurement and reporting. So you don't have to wait until after the fact to go ahead and QC your work. It happens in real time. So what it's doing is it's creating a shorter make-ready period. Okay, as we're running that press, the operator can get up the color faster, and they can continue to remain up the color and within tolerance because there's greater accuracy. Okay, so if they're shooting for that 2 delta E or that 3 delta E, the system will tell them and notify them when they're close to being out of tolerance to give them time to respond, okay, which means there's less starting and less stopping of the press, okay, so we're saving a lot of time, okay, in doing so, okay, and last but not least, let's not forget our customers. So higher quality work, be it the barcode scoring, be it as a result of higher quality logos or graphics, as a result of the web viewing, or of course, last but not least, color. If that customer's happy with the work, they're not only going to give us more work, but they're also not going to hesitate when that invoice comes across their desk, right? So where does all of this lead? It really leads to increased efficiency due to shorter make ready, due to higher accuracy, to literally get you up and running faster and have just a better result all in all on press. Okay, so with that, let's see, we're about 40 minutes past the hour, and now is a great time for us to just take a moment. We're going to open it up to questions, and feel free, and we can see that actually a few questions as we were speaking came in through the chat window, which is great. But go ahead, open up your chat window and send us a note with your question. Steve and I will remain here on the line for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, and we'll take your questions one by one, and we'll see where this heads. But with that, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate, and we always love to present the SpectroVision. So let's do this. Let's address the first question that came through. It looks like it has to do with press speed. Here it is. How does my press speed affect my patch size?
Great. I can take that one, Doug. So there is a direct relationship between the press speed and the size of the color patch that's required on press. So, you know, it's pretty easy. The faster the press goes, the longer the color patch has to be for the system to measure it. To give you a couple of ideas, at 400 feet a minute, we need a color patch that's 3.5 millimeters in length. That's the direction of travel of the web. At 700 feet, we would need 700 feet a minute. We would need a 5 millimeter patch. And at 1,000 feet a minute, it would be a 6.5 millimeter patch in length.
Okay, so our next question here is reporting. Okay, reporting, do we use the reporting features for internal use or are they for the customer? So I'll go ahead and answer that. Great question. And the idea is, in short, both. So the reporting features you can utilize, especially the query features. So inside Chroma QA, it's very powerful in regards to the parameters and the questions that you ask it, the questions that you put forth in regards to not only color, but also efficiency across your presses if you have the system on multiple presses. So a lot of our customers utilize this internally for their own QC, and from a management perspective, when looking at efficiency, press versus press, shift versus shift, job versus job, etc. And the customer-facing component, our customers at the same time, you can attach a logo to the top of your report, and there are 32 or 33 different reporting modules that you have access to, and many of them break it down very simply in regards to attaching a customer logo, attaching their company name, and moving forward with some Delta E metrics, okay, and also moving forward maybe with some TVI metrics based on the job. So it's a very clear, simple 1, 2, maybe 3-page report for the customer to work with and to work off of at the end of the day.
Okay, good. And we got another question coming in here. How do you calibrate the Spectro? So yeah, that's a good question. You didn't see it in the live demo, but there is a white backer which is underneath the image, and then integrated into the white backer over on the side, kind of out of the where the press is running, there is a covered white calibration tile which is included, and it's covered to keep dust and things like that, paper dust off of it, to keep it clean. And the system has an automatic calibration reminder in it, and so it'll prompt the user and calibrate automatically when it is needed.
Great. And here's a question. How many patches can be measured in a single line or column in the color bar like you had in your slides?
Okay, good question. We can have up to 100 color patches in a single color bar, and of course that assumes, right, that one color bar is going to be within one printed impression. So yeah, it's a 100 color patch limit there on the system.
And here's one. If I already have an inspection system installed on my press, can I connect the SpectroVision?
So typically, we see, printers that have kind of an older web viewer that they are typically looking to upgrade and take out. And a lot of times we end up going in that position on the press. And that actually brings up there's another question that's kind of related about the position of where you mount this in the press. And traditionally or ideally, we would want to be mounted somewhere after all the print stations. And I say ideally after the die cut station, because you can use the registration to maybe help with the die cut registration. But you want to mount us before the matrix removal so that the color bars are still available for us to see and measure. So we took 2 for 1 there.
Excellent, Steve. And here's a good one. For the image or registration mark. So when you're looking at an image or registration mark up close using the web viewer, can you look at 2 images so you can see the gear side versus the operator side?
So today, the answer is no. You can't have 2 locations up at once because the camera can only be in one position across the web. It can only be in one place at one time. And it's really not a stop motion as much as it's a live web view. So there's no, when we're not actually stopping and capturing a picture and displaying it, it's actually live view of the web. So it can only be in one place at one time, which means it only shows one position at one time. But you can have multiple stored locations that are in there, and then the press operator, all they need to do is touch on the next position, and the system jumps to the next position. So, you can have dozens of pre-programmed positions for, marks on either side and within the image and things like that, and then the user just touches, and the system jumps to the next position.
And here's a good one. Can the SpectroVision take measurements of not solid colors?
Yes. Yeah, sure. So there are many different patch types that are supported in the system. So solids, tints, right? Tint values from anything from 99 to 1%. There are 2-color overprints. There's 3-color overprints. There are G7 patches, which I didn't mention, but the system can be used to not to establish your G7, print condition, but to monitor it, right? To check it after you've established it to see that you're still achieving your G7 print condition. And in terms of speaking of G7, it actually gives the user some guidance on how to get back to that G7 condition if they're not hitting it, not conforming.
Great, thank you, Steve. And I believe we might have mentioned this, but I see this question more than once. Great question. What's the maximum width that the device can measure? So I think the question here is realistically, what is the maximum web width?
Yeah. So the arm, the traverse arm that we use, is available in widths up to 80 inches. And it is, it's designed for your press. So whatever the width of your press is, up to 80 inches, we actually have those arms made to size for your press.
Great, thanks, Steve. We've also received this question, looks like more than once. Good question here. Tell us about exporting the measurement data. Okay, and they say specifically color for other color measurement analysis purposes.
So yeah, all the data is stored, like I said, inside our database, and we do have the ability to export either job or the query data. So if you're looking across jobs, which is what the query does, that data can be exported out into CXF and Excel files today. So we do have some customers that have some other reporting or statistical process control type tools that they set up a little routine to export data out via Excel and dump it into there, and then they can do that little statistical process control.
Excellent. So on to the next one. Here we are. Measurement conditions, right? Do you measure MO, M1, M2? Talk to that.
So we have today M0, and we will very shortly have the M1, M2 measurement conditions. But everything that we've installed today is all M0.
Excellent. Is it possible to set different tolerances between make-ready mode and your production mode?
So not between the two modes. Once you set your tolerances, they will be for the whole job, for both make-ready and production. But you can be very precise in the tolerances that you set. So each individual color can have its own tolerance for density or delta E or trap or TVI. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive, but there aren't different tolerances between make-ready and production.
And here's a question that we received more than once, and it gets at measuring in image versus the color bar only. So can the SpectroVision make a measurement or take a measurement directly in image, or do you require a color bar?
Oh, absolutely. We can take in-image measurements, and color bars are not required. So it's very flexible. I mean, if you have color bars, you can use them. If you don't have to use them. You can measure anywhere inside the image. If you want to measure color bar and inside the image, you can do that. So that's also a common setup we see is, customers will measure their process colors in the color bar, but they'll measure the build or whatever the spot build is in the work. They can just go out and set it to measure right inside the work and take measurements there. So yeah, it's again, you do not need to have color bars, and again, we know this happens a lot. You don't have room for them. And that's fine. You can just measure right inside the work.
And Steve, there's a question here in regards to substrate thickness. How does the SpectroVision account for the substrate, and more specifically account for the thickness of the substrate?
So the system sits 3 millimeters away from the substrate, and if there's significant changes to the thickness of the substrate, then it's pretty easy to adjust the height. There is some easy controls on either side, and you can change the height of the device up and down. I mean, we typically don't see. I will be honest, we don't really see too often the substrate thickness changing that much from job to job, but that's how it would be done.
And while we're on substrate, what about different color substrate, maybe a metallic substrate? We have a couple questions regarding the substrate.
So metallic is an interesting one. I mean, when we see metallic, if you're putting white down on the metallic and color on top of the white, then it's no problem. If you're just putting color on metallic and the end result looks metallic, then that's probably not the best geometry. 45-0 for measuring metallics or metallic inks, right? There are better instruments. They're a little better suited for measuring something with a metallic appearance. But in a lot of labels, we do see kind of a flood white go down on top of the metallic, and then process color or spot color on top of the white. And then in those cases, that's okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. And it looks like we're about 5 minutes to the hour, and we've also cleared up most of these questions. And we want to say thank you again for joining us. And again, this is part 3 of our webinar series. And yes, please keep in mind, join us next week, same place, same bat channel. And the topic is actually Chroma LT and Chroma QA. And you received a snapshot, sort of a teaser of Chroma QA today as party to the SpectroVision. And it's actually Steve who's going to take you through the press side color quality software solutions. So with that, thank you very much, and we look forward to having you join us next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.